Howdy everyone. Alright, well you can see now that my canopy has color to it rather than just plastic and bare aluminum. So this was my first attempt at doing a vinyl wrap, and this is the end result. And ultimately I am quite impressed actually with the vinyl itself. I have a lot to talk about. I don't know that I'll do it in this video, although you know me, I like to ramble, so I probably will. But I do not have any specific details as far as the processes and how I did it. And I don't have any real tips, any hints of any kind, just because I've only done it. This is the first time I've ever done wrap. And I want to do more of it so that I'm a little bit more convinced that the way that I do it is actually a good way to do it. I will touch on a few things though, just some things that I've learned. So like I said, this is the first time I've ever done wrap. And of course, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to do probably the hardest part of the airplane to wrap, the canopy, because there are a lot of compound curves and a lot of trying to wrap around things and tuck stuff up underneath things and things like that. So especially because of the compound curves, the canopy is probably one of the hardest parts of the plane to wrap. So I decided to start with that, and I decided to use the hardest color, black, gloss black. It shows everything, and it's a little bit more difficult to work with because, like I said, it just shows all the flaws and defects, and if you don't get it just right, it's hard to fix. It's hard to cover it up just because of the color. So, anywho, this is it. It is almost finished. I have a couple of more strips I'm going to add underneath my target strip. I've got the first little edge wrapped around on the inside and covered, and I want to add another strip to go. It's actually the canopy plexiglass itself. I want to put another strip on the actual plastic part and have the black go all the way to the aluminum structure here. So I'm going to put another strip all the way around on the inside, right up along this on the canopy. And then as far as the wrap goes, that will be done for the canopy anyway. So what have I learned? I've learned a lot. So the first time that you start to wrap, you'll learn a lot real quick. And this is just my experience so far. I don't want to go into a lot of detail because I want to do more wrapping and figure out exactly what I think is a good way to go about doing it. So a few things real quick. Gloss black shows everything, right? So every little wave, every little bend, every little inconsistency, every little step, ridge, anything like that's going to show. And I don't know if you guys have noticed much with my canopy frame when it was just bare. I had made my skirts, the side skirts, these side panels a little bit different, so there's an overlap in here, and you can see that very well. I had used fuel tank sealant to do my windscreen fairing, and I did it in layers, and the black will show those layers. You can actually feel it. You can feel that this is almost like stepped, and you can see that very clearly in the black. The rivet dimples, screw dimples, anything like that. So anywho, so right off the bat, first thing that you want to make sure is that your aluminum is nice and clean. I cleaned everything very, very well with isopropyl alcohol, and I believe that is what's recommended by the vinyl company. So everything gets cleaned really well, and then you can start your wrap. This particular wrap is made by Vivid. This particular gloss black has what's called a protective cap. It's just a very thin, clear plastic cap. It's a very thin cover, and that's to help protect it so it doesn't get scratched or damaged while you're actually applying it. After you have it in place, you peel that protective cover off. Now that protective cover becomes a nuisance when you're doing the installation, because when you're working with it and you're bending it and you're manipulating it, sometimes that cover will crease or it will bubble or it just kind of gets in the way, and then you can't tell. Originally it was hard to tell if it was the cover that was giving me a problem or the vinyl itself was actually bubbled or wrinkled. So something to think about. But I would prefer to have the protective cap on all of my vinyl. I don't know if that's an option. I don't know if it's a black only thing. But hopefully not. Hopefully I can get the rest of my colors with that protective film over the top, because I think it's really great and I think it's a good idea. I'm not going to, like I said, I've said it many times, I'm not going to go into the processes because I'm not really sure if I'm doing it the best way that I can. But I will say this, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. Most of them, of course, are cars when it comes to wrapping, and the vast majority of them stretch the crap out of the vinyl, and I was never a fan of that. The way that this vinyl works is if you stretch it, well, first of all, with that protective film over the top, it makes it a lot more difficult to stretch. Second, I don't know if it's this particular film or all films in general, but I expected the actual film itself, the actual vinyl, to be very, very thin. Almost a consistency of not even this protective, thinner than this. I just expected it to be really, really super thin. And this is a lot thicker than I expected. So it's thicker than I expected, and with that clear plastic protective film, stretching it is a little bit more tedious than I thought it would be. And it's fine for me personally, because watching these videos, I was never a big fan of stretching. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The other problem is with this film, it's not a problem, it's just an observation. And I'm sure it's the same with all films, because I saw this in the YouTube videos. You put the film down, you stretch it, and then you anchor it. And then you put heat to it. Well, what the heat does, the heat tries to basically undo the stretch, right? So if you take a piece of vinyl and you attach it and you stretch it and just leave it hanging loose, when you put heat on it, it will try to go back to its original form. It basically unstretches. So that got me thinking that, if I'm pulling on the vinyl and I'm yanking on it everywhere and I'm trying to wrap it around corners or like on the sides, it just kind of goes up to where the plastic canopy is and stops. And then I take this thing outside on a nice sunny day, all of this black is going to heat up and it's going to try to unstretch, and it's going to start pulling away from the edges. It's going to try to unwrap around corners and things like that. Just didn't make sense to me. So all I do is I basically just tack it down with no stretch or very little stretch. And then once I get it in position, I get it smooth, I get all the air bubbles out of it. Then I put a heat gun to it and I heat it up nice and warm. And then I continue to work it and smooth it just to make sure that adhesive is nice and warm. The aluminum underneath is nice and warm, and I get a good bond between the aluminum and the adhesive. I don't use the heat gun very much at all, other than to, once I'm almost done, just to get heat into everything so that the adhesive will bond. So that's the way I've been doing it, and it's been working out so far. And again, this has not been on the plane. This has not been subject to heat, cold, sun, wind, all that stuff. This is, as you see it now, is as it sits. Just haven't finished up some of the vinyl. Okay, so enough about that. I'll just go around here and give you some different views real quick. Try not to trip over all kinds of stuff I've got on the floor at the moment. I am impressed with the color. The color depth, if you will, is very impressive. I've noticed over the years, dealing with a lot of black paint, that it looks nice in black until you put like a light on it. If you, some of the paints that I've dealt with, some of the black paints that I've done over the years, they look fine until you take like a flashlight, especially like an LED flashlight, and shine it directly on the color. It almost looks brown. Sometimes it will look almost like a reddish. It will have like a reddish tint. With this, you put a flashlight on it, it's still super deep black. And it's very, very, very glossy. And you can see it is very, very smooth. And I'm just impressed with it. Now, like I've said many times, I've never done vinyl. This is my first experience with it. Perhaps all of the black vinyls are basically the same. But I am very pleased with this particular black color and how incredibly shiny and smooth it is. It's very, very nice. I'm excited to use, to get some more of this on the airplane. And I'm really excited to start fooling around with the other colors. So here I am, having said that I wasn't going to talk very long. It's now 12 minutes later. So I'm going to wrap this up, as it were. I'm going to finish up the last couple of pieces of vinyl wrap on the canopy, and then I'm going to install the canopy onto the airplane. I'm going to hook up my LED lights. I'm going to run the wires for my my 2 GPS antennas. I'm going to mount them up on the top of the on top of the glare shield, and I think that will be it. I think the canopy can stay on the airplane at that point until I'm ready to move it. Once I'm ready to transport the airplane to my hangar, I may take this back off. But that's not going to be for quite a long time. So I think once I get this finished, I'll put it on the airplane, and then I can go back to working on the cowling. So there you have it. My initial attempt at vinyl wrapping, it went well. I did this back piece twice originally. So the roll that I have, I think it's a 5-foot roll. The width of the roll is 5 feet. I don't think you can get them any bigger than that, but I'm not sure. But I didn't pay any attention to that, and that was not long enough to do this target strip in its entirety. It ended up being short by about 2 inches. I tried doing it all in one piece, and I tried wrapping it around this edge all the way back to the flange of this piece here. And it, like I said, it was too short, so I was going to have to patch it on the one corner. And there were all kinds of wrinkles and creases up underneath inside here. So I ended up taking it off. And I'm now doing it in 4 individual pieces. I got half of it here, and then a half on the other side, and then the pieces up underneath are also going to be 2 individual pieces. But like I said, this piece of vinyl wraps around underneath, and you can see where it stops right here. This is the actual canopy here, the canopy glass. So the vinyl wraps around up to that point, and now I'm going to get another strip to cover up the actual canopy part here. And I'll put a piece on this side and a piece on the other side, so it's going to be 2 more individual pieces. That makes it a lot easier to work with. I have absolutely no creases and no wrinkles, and it's coming out great. And I did the same thing on this front piece. This front piece I was going to do it as a single piece, but it was just way too difficult for me, being unexperienced. I'm sure a professional could probably do it. But I did this front piece in 2 halves. So I've got a piece here and a piece over there and a seam in the middle. So there you have it. My first attempt. I am quite pleased. We'll have to see over time how long it lasts. So I'll get cranking on this stuff, and I will talk to you guys later.